Good afternoon. So I'm sitting outside in the Israel Guru Street, and we should now record the video in the series of the Ziggurat of Ur. This will be a very sad video, but the other one are also sad. Some of the details of the things that of the subject of this video are not known to me. Specifically, I would say the procedure that is the exact procedure that the Israeli intelligence is doing, because there is not like one exact procedure, and they don't have it. So it's not only that I don't have any complete knowledge, but probably anyone doesn't have the complete knowledge, because they act like as it's kind of like a pirate ship with all sorts of conventions. So there are some details that that you will see that I don't have all the details, but probably no one else as well as all the details. But the important, I understand the important issues, and I will speak about it. The subject, I will not put like in too much like suspension. The subject is the way that the Israeli intelligence take revenge on the offspring of people that they think of them as traitors. I've already mentioned Mazal Fortuna, which was murdered she was 3 years old, and she was murdered by the people of the kibbutz Salmach Tzuba, because they discovered that my grandfather spoke with his brother, American brother, about the Titans and their subjugation. I already said that. I also said that it was kind of like a divine intervention, that they didn't, that no one actually murdered him and replaced him with a clone from Venus, because they wanted to do it. What I should say is that many times when there is a case of supposedly treachery, because of course he did. Needless to say, my grandfather, rest in peace, he was a hero, and of course that he paid such a price. 3 years old daughter. But of course, his motives were so. It shouldn't be even said that his motives were ulterior. In any case, many times the actual person that gives information to a foreign power, specifically, this is most certainly if it's in the case of United States or Russia, or back in the Soviet Russia. So he is now protected by them to some extent, and he doesn't really need to leave Israel, because Israel was always infested with American and Russian representative, infested, and many other countries as well, because it's kind of like an immigrant state that so presumably you can actually live in Israel with the protection of the Americans. Presumably. Of course, the big problem here is that the Israelis like to take revenge on the offspring, even if she's 3 years old. So of course, you cannot really trust the Americans or the Russians or whoever, especially if you plan to have children. So the question of so how long do they actually the Israelis actually hold their grudge? So what about children that were born or adopted after the case of supposedly the treachery? Are they also need to be avenged? So the answer is yes, in all sorts of ways. And I cannot give you a complete inscription of what is the procedure to deal with traitor, because there is no such. The main issue is that they try to murder supposedly the traitor, and to replace him with a Venusian clone. They didn't do it in the case of my grandfather, and they also at some point they killed his children and even grandchildren. But this is it doesn't have a formula. It's more of an organized idea in Israel to do it. Both Michal, the daughter of, my aunt, and Israel, my father, during their childhood, they were, I mean, I understand, only like very recently I understood that, I mean, the children of this generation of, I mean, of this like strata in like, I mean, population, like people that, I mean, belong to the founding, like strata of Israel, specifically from the Palmach and things like that. Many times, I mean, they were subjected to very long but invisible kind of like sexual harassment. It was not only the product of the time, but also a product of, I mean, the direct intervention of people like in this Israeli establishment. To do it to children, including the old children, so they will have all sorts of like traumas, even if none of it is illegal. I mean, that's what the Shabbat people are doing anyway all the time. Like 90% of what they do is, I mean, try to harass you and, I mean, to scare you, to steal from you in ways that are presumably not illegal. They are goons. I don't have the mood to actually speak too much about the biographies of Michal and Israel, and it's not that important. I should say that Israel, my father, I mean, he finished high school like when he was 17, and then, I mean, he quickly, like, he did his, like, Bachelor of Science before military service, like, I mean, in mathematics, and when he was 19 or 12 or 20, he enlisted them into, like, as the Atuda, like, I mean, kind of like, I mean, people that actually served as officers for 6 years after the military, after the degree. So he also, I mean, they did his second, like, his Master of Science doing this. And so he was enlisted to the artillery corps. And initially, I mean, it was called Atuda Kravit, so he was designed to serve like as an artillery officer. It was actually common back in the day, but now they don't do it anymore. There is no, like, there's such a thing, like, academic officers that are in the battlefield. But it wasn't like him at all. I mean, so, I mean, it was a complete, like, misfit. So the artillery, I mean, corps, released him from, like, I mean, it's true, this guy is not going to be like artillery officer, but he became an officer and he served in yes, still in the artillery corps, but I mean, in the science department, and they actually had like a science department, and he served there. And after some time, like, I mean, in like when Mafrash, what's now called Mazi, was actually established, which is kind of like, I mean, it's a kind of body that, I mean, arranges, like, I mean, all the many, like, land corps like together. So they had like bigger science like, I mean, department. So he worked there, and he also like he had the privilege to actually do the PhD during the time, which is, I mean, pretty nice, because, I mean, so he was released, he was still very young. I mean, I remember him, like, when he had done his PhD, I was actually born, like, I mean, in 1984. So he had like 2 years, I mean, release, I mean, from the military, even though he still got like salary, which is great. And I still remember him, like, as a soldier, like, I mean, he was, I mean, as a very young child, I mean, with returns home, like, I mean, every day with uniform, and like James Bond bag. He had the James Bond bag, and I remember, like, I'm opening it and searching for the waffle from the Shekem, kind of like metzupe, like, I mean, blue waffle, I mean, blue paper over silver aluminum foil. I remember it from very early age. So after some time, he was released from the military. He was still very young, actually, like well before 30, and so he pursued like academic career in mathematics. Eventually, he found a job in Ben Gurion University, and he became professor in Ben Gurion University later. And during all this time, I mean, up until very lately in his career, he also had, like, I mean, a second kind of like a career, I mean, that was secondary, but also, I mean, consistent of like working as like, I mean, in what's the name of this company in Ramat Sharon that, I mean, government company that creates like, I mean, bullets and like things like that, like shells. TAS. So he worked like as a consultant to there. I mean, because it's one of his expertise was, the artillery, statistics of artillery, like shells, like how they hit and how to avoid friendly fires and things like that. Of course, he was part of Israeli intelligence because of the fact that, he was a pedophile and he married like a woman that is a slave, as you understand. My mother. So he was part of this organization, but I don't know, if he actually he took part like in intelligence like operations. I just don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, and you cannot really tell because, he always traveled, because as an academic, you always go to to conference like all around the world. So you always traveled. So maybe they also used him like as kind of like a spy in whatever. But my intuition is to say that he didn't, like, because I think it's just he had his job he has these two jobs. Like a professor and also a consultant in TAS. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. The important issue is that whatever he worked for the Israeli intelligence or no, they thought that, according to their understanding of reality, he was like in a death row all his life since he was born because of the treachery of his father. And according to there is one thing with the procedure of handling such people that they understand very well, and this is perhaps the most unbelievable, and because it sounds like, completely random, but anyway, this is something that I can tell you, with very high, like muvakut, like, I'm sure it's like that. I haven't slept for three nights, so it's 4 days, so sometimes I don't find English words. So for some, it is known since like very long ago in the Israeli intelligence that the sons of traitors, like the sons. So for some very peculiar reason, unless there are other circumstances that mitigated, and presumably my father didn't have it, so it's another reason why I don't think it actually served like in the Israeli intelligence. He was part of the organization for his like marriage life, but I don't think that he done. He certainly didn't have credit like that might mitigate like his verdict, because the usual verdict is that they are only allowed to live until the age of 38. That's the way it is. And they can postpone like their death if they serve the Indian intelligence, but presumably didn't. So how it's actually done, like the most of like what they do, through conditioning. Supposedly, every person that is related to Israeli intelligence, including people like my father, that was a son of like a famous traitor, and also by his own self and his pedophile inclination, part of the Israeli intelligence. So he was subjected to conditioning, like I'm conditioned all my life. And supposedly, when they press the buttons, when they show you the correct picture or whatever hypnotic triggers, you must obey them. I don't know how it works because, they do to me all day, all day, all along, wherever I am. But and mostly, they cannot cause me to be under their hypnotic control, as you understand. But in any case, when he was 38, it was the year 1994. He was born in 56. He was murdered. My father was murdered. I was 10 years old. And he was replaced with a clone from Venus. And the professor that is called Israel, the retired professor Israel David, is actually a clone from Venus. You can actually verify it by, as usual, iris and cornea test that will give you not his age. You just need to check the age of to ask the doctor to give you the estimation of the age according to the iris on the cornea, and the doctor will say something like 20 years old, even though he's not 20. He was presumably born in 1956. So I'll end this chapter now, but I will continue very, very, very soon.